So what the heck happened to COD Warzone?
Royale genre implemented into a gritty Modern Warfare rebooted universe. Many Call of Duty fans experiencing 150 player combined arms battles with infantry and vehicles on a large map for the very first time. Intense combat.
I will say that's one of the big things that did change with Warzone. In particular is the player count change. I feel like did mess with the formula more than they probably expected. And I think in a perfect world, we would go back to 150 players. I think one of the things that caused them to change that number is because the lower the player count in a lobby, the easier it is for a team to win. Just mathematically. If you have 30 less players in trios, that's 10 less teams. And then your odds of winning go higher, which more than likely, if your odds are higher to win, then when you do win, you're going to end up staying on the game longer. And they probably use their algorithm to adjust for that, but I'm sure we'll get into that. Jack Frag's video talking about what the heck went wrong with Warzone. A lot of people told me to check this video out.
Back at the last second while the play space shrinks around you. The loadout system allowed you to customize your own preferred arsenal, tweaking and meddling with weapon builds in the gunsmith. The guns felt varied, viable, punchy with realistic function, accurate reloads and more recoil. They sounded incredible. The game was just pure fun and offered a great space to kick back with your friends and have a laugh in a Call of Duty sandbox like never before. Skip to January 2025 and things have significantly changed for Call of Duty and Warzone. The situation is not good.
One thing I will account for that he just mentioned where it was like fun because it was fresh and whatever. What ends up happening is the longer a game is out, it inherently gets more competitive over time. Even without YouTubers or algorithms or any of that type of stuff, it's just people get more familiar with the game and they know every facet of the game. What the best meta weapons are, how to adjust your loadouts, how to position better. There's a lot of things that people just learn over time and it becomes less casualized. And that's for every video game ever. Even Fortnite, they had to come out with the no build mode because the people got too good at building. Apex, their competitive side thrives, but their casual part doesn't. And they have a lot of issues, but that's just as an aside. When it comes to just gaming in general, that's not unique to COD. That has become less casualized because people just get better at a game. You would expect them to over 5 years.
Good. The player count is falling. The last time I personally played Warzone was when they released the Area 99 map on November 14th last year. I played about 5 matches in total on that. I made one video and I logged off. All of my real life friends don't play the game anymore. The Milkman doesn't play the game anymore. My content creator friends don't play the game anymore.
Well, one thing I will say that is a really short time to form an opinion, and they've had a dozen updates since then. The game hasn't gotten much better. If anything, there has been tons of issues. So 5 matches, sure, but I don't really think that is a really good interpretation. Obviously, the anecdotal stuff with, hey, my friends don't play, that makes sense. I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys have the friends that are like that. I think that there were a lot of issues at launch, which are pretty normal on launch day. But 5 matches, if you won every match on that, you probably played an hour, which seems kind of like a small, yeah.
Talk about it at all. There's no desire to play right now. But why and what the hell happened?
But that's fair.
Well, in this video, I'm going to give some feedback and try to understand and explain what happened. I'm going to keep it as brief as I can, and I'm going to make some assumptions. This is more how I feel. There's going to be some feels over reels here, but everything that I say is based on my experience with this game and from listening to other people's experiences and viewpoints. I realize how hard it must be to make a massive game like this, but consider this some constructive criticism from a fan. You won't agree with me on everything, and that's perfectly fine. I'm going to be wrong about some things, but do let me know your thoughts below. But this is how I feel about the current situation, and hopefully offers some potential solutions. I'm doing this because I used to love playing Warzone on a daily basis. Now, I don't touch the thing, and I want to see it improve. We'll be discussing some general COD stuff in here too. Now, I want to be clear that I'm also making this video from the perspective of a gamer rather than someone who makes YouTube videos for a living. Forget about that. I've played almost all of the Call of Duty games on PC in online multiplayer since the very first Call of Duty set in World War II. I was running around Carentan and Stalingrad, fragging out on a 56k modem, having a blast. Before that, it was Medal of Honor Allied Assault. I've seen it all. Things have changed a lot though for Call of Duty.
Crazy how far the graphics have come, huh?
I'm also predicting that with COD bringing back Verdansk in March or April this year, as the rumors go, They are hoping that it's going to reinvigorate the game and the players will come flooding back. However, I don't think this will be the case unless there are significant meaningful changes, as there are many fundamental issues with the current build that will overshadow any nostalgia that will quickly fade away. So 2025 Warzone.
And this is true. We've probably done 3 different videos since the game launched, specifically about this, where that the initial integration was like a soft launch. Verdansk will be the official hard launch of the update, that they need to get everything dialed in by then. We even did a 90-day countdown, which it's probably closer to 110 days, based off it being towards April, based off the rumors and leaks. So realistically, they need to get the game dialed in. Primary issues right now are the bugs, which I'm sure he's going to touch on, but we're all on the same page on that. The game is not in a state where it needs to be, that if Verdansk launched tomorrow, that the game would succeed. Like, it is a sink or swim, and it would immediately sink because the issues that are currently a problem aren't necessarily the map, because people are playing Rebirth. They enjoy Rebirth. People say it's nostalgia, but people still love and play Rebirth. It's less about the map, more about the underlying issues of the gameplay loop, whether it's the Gulag player count, how quickly it could be bought back, the money. As you can see, there's a lot of kinds of issues.
We're going to start with gameplay. The current iteration of Warzone as a whole is too complicated, especially for new and returning players. 2020 Warzone was simple, and I've broken this gameplay bit down into sections. First up, we're going to talk about movement. The movement in 2020 Warzone was basic. You had aim, shoot, sprint, tactical sprint, slide, and a contextual weapon mount. It was easy to understand and simple to get to grips with for new or existing COD players. 2025 Warzone integrated with Black Ops 6, and it took on the new Omni movement system. You can now sprint in any direction, dive through the air in any direction, lie on your back and shoot, dive, slide, get up really quick, continue shooting, crouch, slide. It has many complexities, leading to unpredictable, frustrating, and
I disagree with this. I think it's less complex. I know he mentioned all those other things, but there was just as much complexity in the previous one. This one, you push right on your analog stick and it moves right. Like, it slightly runs faster. I disagree on this point a little bit. I'm sure we'll agree on a lot of things, but I disagree. Omni movement is so simple.
Level, featuring many customizable options too that confuse players, especially for those returning. While it may have been
I do agree on the settings in the menu could be significantly better because they want to try and help out new players, but I think it does confuse players. I think the settings are an issue.
Fun change of pace for multiplayer in Black Ops 6 on small maps with fast respawns, I feel like it isn't well suited to a Call of Duty Battle Royale experience. Intrinsically linked to this is a severe lack of consistency. This is a big issue. Every year a new COD game releases and they integrate that into Warzone. The result of this is that there's no through line and base understanding for the gameplay, which confuses players. Warzone 2020, basic, easy to understand, and then Cold War releases, guns get quicker, TTK gets quicker, movements faster. Next was Vanguard, Verdansk goes away, World War II setting, map design ethos changes, overpowered planes in the sky, bad visibility, and then Warzone 2, massive sweeping changes. They add an inventory system, they add AI, strongholds. It's now a mix between BR and an extraction game. Snipers are changed and the pace is slowed down excessively. Modern Warfare 3, they revert most of that and you have a weird hybrid.
See, that's the problem is Warzone 2, we've talked a little bit about this. It flopped so hard that they basically had to revert everything, but they couldn't do everything at once, just because that's not necessarily how dev works, I guess. And then now they've taken it to a step where the current iteration of the way the movement mechanics work and Omni movement, it'll be probably consistently this way going forward. Even if they add other additions with the new iterations of COD, I don't think this current version of Warzone will change that much. I think maybe some functional things where like maybe they're going to get rid of these satchel things because maybe they want to simplify it even further, and they'll probably continue to simplify it and get back to its core roots. But I don't think the movement's going to change a ton based off where it's at, because I personally think it's simple. Like, it is. But like he said, he disagrees on that point.
That's been hodgepodge together, playing on an uninspired large map, Urzikstan, with no character. Black Ops 6, completely new movement system, still on the same big map. There's no ground zero for the players. And sometimes players might not necessarily like that year's flavor of COD either, yet they're forced to have it in Warzone. Many have favorites. Some love the Black Ops type gameplay, some hate it, some prefer Sledgehammer, Infinity Ward for Modern Warfare. There's too much pulling and pushing, and I imagine that the dev teams are constantly bickering on what their vision of Warzone is for whatever year, yanking the game in different directions, time and time again, taking one step forward and 3 steps back. Problems and bugs that were previously fixed return again and again. Think about Counter-Strike. That game released in 1999. It's inherently the same game today, one of the most played games ever on PC. PUBG, there's a foundation they've stuck to, still incredibly popular. Warzone, it keeps flip-flopping, there's no conviction in the game design, and this is hurting it on many levels, and the choice to integrate it into the yearly cycle of Call of Duty games is not working. Next, guns. Why is there over 160 weapons in the game? This kludge of Modern Warfare 2, Modern Warfare 3, Black Ops 6, it cannot be balanced. It's bloated, overwhelming, intimidating. Thinking about all these guns that you have to level up now, which takes way longer than it used to, by the way. Only 5 of them get used most of the time. It just seems so unnecessary.
I think he does contradict himself there, but does also make a good point. I think there are ways that they could modify the volume of weapons that they have in the game, whether it's they only allow 2 sets of guns. But the other point he makes is people only end up using about 5 of them. So it's really like you do not have to level up all of them. So it's kind of like one of those things that it's kind of fighting each other. If all the guns were viable, then maybe you would have to level all of them up. But realistically, if it's only 5 weapons, like right now, if you leveled up the XM4 and the Jackal at launch, which probably take you a day or two if you play quite a bit, or maybe even a week. The game's been out for a few months. You would have had the meta loadout and you'd be max level. Like you would have no issues. It wouldn't be complicated. XM4 is also the first gun you unlock. I think it's unlocked at level 1. So there's also that going for it. But I think there are a lot of systems that are problems with the create a class system currently. And there's ways that they can fix that by allowing things just to be unlocked, or there's got to be a middle ground other than you buy blueprint, you unlock attachments on a gun. Like that's a funky, but obviously they're going to make money on the free to play version. I think the whole game needs to go free to play. But that's in another aside, right? Even BO6 zombies multiplayer should be free to play, but here we are.
And the gear, there's too much gear, too many options. What's this? RDB. Is that a life ring? Do I have to be in water to use that? This is a Semtex. That doesn't really look like a Semtex, but whatever. A spy camera? What? So why would I want to take a picture in a battle royale game? What kind of spots people? It's a waste of time. Never going to use that again. What's this vest on the ground here? Oh, there's a different one here. Why is this board game from the 80s here? What does that do then? There's just too much stuff in the game. Too much stuff. Next, the game itself is not really a battle royale anymore. It plays more like TDM on a large map where there are 1,000 ways to respawn, you get your loadouts almost instantly, and the map just happens to get smaller and smaller until one person or team wins. There are way too many options to respawn. You don't feel the danger or value your life in Warzone like you used to, and that takes away a key component of the game that made it fun and interesting. Warzone 1 struck a nice balance with this, but they've taken respawns in the main battle royale mode too far in the wrong direction now. Many changes they've made, in fact, have steered the game away from its original vision. There's no downtime anymore. Respawns, redeploy beacons that can move you around vast distances of the map in a few seconds. Fast ziplines everywhere connecting buildings together, horizontal and vertical. The pace is relentless and you don't have time to breathe. Those quiet moments that you had in 2020 when you were looting, moving from point A to point B, working out how much money you had together to see if you could buy a loadout yet, chatting, catching up with your mates, socialize.
I feel like a part of that was the zone. The first zone used to be significantly longer, so you could like lollygag, for lack of a better term. And even though we didn't have all the zips and stuff, vehicles were super powerful in the first iteration of Warzone. I hope we get back to that where the vehicles can be like the main movement tech. I think horizontal zips I don't think a lot of people are using horizontal. Obviously regular zips, yeah, those decrease or increase the mobility across the map. But realistically, you end up with I think the first zone, they could just change the first zone and it would feel like you're looting. Oh, cool. We got 10 minutes to loot like we did in Warzone 1.
While you play, that's all gone. That's not possible anymore. Those moments were needed. People enjoy those moments. The peaks and valleys of 2020 Warzone are what made it addictive and interesting. There was a narrative, little stories and moments that you would have and remember. Nowadays, it's just a hyper-fast TDM with a shrinking play zone. Most players just run at each other full speed and hold down fire. The basis of a semi-authentic, realistic map that we used to have has been replaced for intense player movement and rotation. Moving on, vehicle.
Well, one thing he doesn't mention there is like what attributed to that. Obviously he says balloons and all that, but he didn't mention the thing about the zones. And then also going back to originally, the player skill level has increased significantly since then, with a combination of SBMM, engagement optimized matchmaking, whatever skill threshold you consider important. Those things have changed. So the average player has gotten better. And also the pairing of players has gotten better because of the matchmaking. So on average, you're not going to run into the people that are just wandering around looting because of the way the skill differential works, which I'm sure he's going to talk about skill-based matchmaking. But realistically, of course, people are rushing you because everyone thinks they're a good player at Warzone, right? And they're running around haphazardly, rushing everything because they've gotten better at the game and they feel more confident. Versus back then, there were actually noobs at Call of Duty, actually noobs that haven't played the franchise in forever. They're not like him, where he has played quite a bit, or myself, or a lot of the COD fan base that has played multiple iterations of COD. When Warzone came out, these are people that hadn't touched video gaming. So it is a little bit of a difference. Hopefully he addresses that in the video.
Useless now, no one uses them. Why would you when you can loot a redeployed beacon and move vast distances in a few seconds? Vehicles in Warzone 2020 were fun. Big part of the gameplay loop. Driving around as a squad in a big truck, a Jeep, relocating in a helicopter, or having to bail onto a roof at the last second because it just took too much damage from other players. This was exciting and it offered unique gameplay scenarios that COD didn't have before. The vehicles now handle poorly, they can be destroyed easily, they might as well not be in the game, and the map design has hampered the use of vehicles too. The other side of this is that
how quick he deleted that guy in the window was insane.
The vehicles also created epic and memorable moments for infantry who were fighting against them. Go on, go on, go on. Oh!
Dang.
No,
nice.
Jack. No way, that is ridiculous.
Oh, you got him.
Hitting long-range RPG shots on helicopters and Berthas as they screamed by, being chased down on the main roads by quad bikes, cinematic Michael Bay moments, firing javelin rockets at armored personnel carriers, setting proximity mine traps on the roads and bridges, using C4, sniping a pilot. That's all gone now. Doesn't happen anymore. Yes, I recognize that some of the vehicle systems were overpowered and they could be annoying at times. For example, fighting a truck that can instantly accelerate to 200 miles per hour and road kill you. But they've been nerfed to the point now where they're irrelevant, and I think that's a shame. Next topic, audio. This could have its own section, even video, but I wanted to include it in gameplay here because it is one of my biggest complaints with the game. And for me, it has a massive negative impact on my experience.
100%.
I don't think Warzone has ever had good audio. You can't hear footstep sounds until they're right next to you. The footstep sounds get muted and muddied by other audio in the game. The engine does an awful job with multiple footsteps at once. There's a weird reverb effect now that's confusing. It's hard to tell if someone's above or below you. Parachutes don't make noise a lot of the time and someone can just land on you without you hearing a thing. You put this all together and to me, it makes me feel like I'm not connected to the game. I feel like I'm gliding around in a space and not grounded in the experience. My ears are not giving me the information and feedback that I need to understand the environment that I find myself in. And when I get killed by an entire squad who tactical sprinted up to me at full speed, and I watch the kill cam, my mouth agape with what I see, I alt tab, I watch my recording back, and all I can hear, just to check, just to make sure I'm not crazy, half a second before I die is 3 small pitter-patter footsteps. That is an incredibly frustrating and disconnected experience for a player that happens all of the time. Now, audio is a very contentious issue in this game because there are 2 main schools of thinking with it that fight each other. The first school is very anti-accurate audio because people think that if you've got good audio in COD or Warzone, it will just promote camping and players won't want to move around the map at all for fear of being pre-fired or noticed too easily. The other school of thinking is pro-good audio, and that's the one that I assign myself to because to me,
pro-good audio.
I think this through. Which one would I rather have, whether I win or die? Let's think of a scenario. You're in a building, moving through to the next zone, and you have a firefight with a squad at the end of a corridor. You get bogged down. Maybe you take out one of theirs, they take out one of yours, but you're still in the fight, reloading, whatever. Then all of a sudden, behind you, another 3-man squad appears that rushed up to your building and start shooting you in the back. if you had good audio there, you hear that other squad coming and you can act accordingly. You can flank, disengage, move so you're not in line of sight from a specific window, and get ready to fight another team behind you. Whatever, you might win, you might lose. With bad audio, like how it is in Warzone at the moment, that squad runs up to the building you're in. You don't hear them, they shoot you in the back and kill you. What would be more satisfying and interesting to me in that scenario? Spoiler, it's the one where I can hear the squad coming regardless of if they kill me or not, because I would have had a level of understanding from the knowledge the game gave me before the fight, and I can act on that, regardless if I act correctly, incorrectly, regardless of if I die or not. For me, the game would be way more engaging and interesting that way if it A, had accurate footstep audio, so when people are sprinting around I can understand roughly where they are, and B, gave players the option to crouch or walk almost silently, so if a player wants to be as quiet as they can be, sneak around, they still have that option, but they have to slow down a bit and think more about the engagement. A bit of risk, reward and strategy creeps in, rather than how it is at the moment, players just sprint around holding W and shift because they know how bad the footstep audio is and the chances of someone hearing them are low. To me, having better audio and more context of the situation around you is better whether you lose or win the engagement. And the audio is so bad that some PC players will spend time installing third-party software, adjusting and tweaking their EQ settings in Windows to completely distort the sound of the game just so they can raise the footstep audio slightly. Many pro players in tournaments, MP and Warzone, were using this and openly said that if they didn't, they felt like they were at a disadvantage. Some players consider this cheating too, but it shows how desperate people are for good audio. Overall, the whole audio system and way of thinking with it, the design mentality in Warzone and COD needs a huge
And I don't think anyone disagrees with the audio being that bad. I think it's weird too, because when you spectate, it's clear that the audio works and functions. So it's like whatever the replay is filtering out to give you good audio, like they need to change the engine to match that audio profile or whatever, because when I did spectating randoms, the audio sounds insanely good. When you see here a kill cam, when you spectate your teammates, literally every element of that sounds amazing. As soon as you're first person, everything sounds like trash. So ideally it'd be a perfect world to fix that.
So that's my core gameplay section complete. Next, we're going to move on to aesthetics. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that a skin in a Call of Duty game is going to ruin my day, because it isn't. Skins can be fun, stupid, and they make a lot of money for the publisher. They support the game, especially if it's free to play. You know, if I see someone running around as a unicorn, a shark, Nicki Minaj, an emoji, whatever the hell these things are, I'm not going to start crying about it and quit the game. As long as it's just cosmetic and it doesn't have gameplay benefits like the Rose skin did, I can live with it. I've bought stupid goofy skins and takedowns myself. If you buy them, that's your money, your choice. However, and I do think that this is important to many people, Call of Duty used to have an identity, an aesthetic. For many gamers, especially those who are late 20s to mid to late 30s, they grew up with the original COD trilogy set in World War II, then the original Modern Warfare trilogy, up until about the first Black Ops game, I'd say. All of those games together collectively had a vibe to them. This is what Call of Duty looked like back then. It was the cool, gritty military game with realistic outfits and guns. Yeah, the gameplay was arcadey, and you'd have bombastic action moments in the campaigns and multiplayer, but it looked like this. It had a feeling in the visuals, the worlds, the guns, even the audio. That has completely disappeared now, gone out of the window. Call of Duty does not have an identity anymore. It's akin to Fortnite in the range of art styles and aesthetics crammed into the game. This trend started with Black Ops 2 from what I recall, and it really began to accelerate with Advanced Warfare. Player customization obtained in various ways, from supply drops, challenges, weapons could look a bit different. You had the infamous clown mask. And
well, part of it's the culture of microtransactions in video games. Everything shifted around that time. Obviously, it went to the supply drop model, and they had a lot of those things going on. And it's not like it's a new thing. And if they can go out to make money, great. One thing that I've talked about in the past, it's not like something I advocate in every video or anything, but there should be a setting inside your settings where you can control the character models, what they look like. So for example, you toggle this on, maybe it'd be the milsim operator toggle or whatever the heck you'd want to call it. And then instead of making all the operators like a basic default skin, it'd be one of the basic milsim operators. In Modern Warfare 2019, there was a long list of milsim operators from different factions or parts of the world, depending on what country they're from. And ideally, there'd be a switch so that if you were opposed to seeing this type of Fortnite cosmetic skin that COD, they've been selling for 4 years, 5 years now, especially in Warzone, but even further back, if you look at these ones, there should be a toggle switch where you'd say milsim whatever, and it would essentially make it so that every character you saw on the map would essentially look like a random milsim operator, and then it would give you that feel or flavor that he's talking about. I don't know the technical complications of that. Like, is it a huge undertaking and maybe it's like too complicated, it's not worth their investment, or they don't think it's worth? But this is one thing that I've heard for a while, where there's a lot of people say, oh, it's cartoony and all these other things, whether it's a cosmetic. Cool. I think they're going to continue to sell these. They can't lock them up or anything. But for the individual player, just like there's the spider thing that you could turn off in zombies, or there's other features that are for color blindedness, like they should be able to do a toggle and it would just change the settings so all the operators are locked to one of these 12 or 20 different operators that are a milsim operator. I think that's a happy medium where people can still buy the skins. Like he says, he doesn't really care, but there is a percentage of the player base that really does care. And just because that skin is present in the game, they'll be like, nah, stupid, I'm done. And it becomes an issue. So if you allow the option, then it's like, cool, now my game plays like the game I want it to play like. And it's one of those things. So
with the rise
I think that could be an option.
Success of in-game microtransactions, live service, etc., the player skins and weapon skins are more outlandish than ever before. So when lapsed or even existing non-regular Call of Duty players come back to try the game, try the new Warzone, maybe they come back for Verdansk and they see this kind of thing, these colorful fantasy skins in a franchise that used to be grounded and authentic when they played it, that could potentially turn them off. It isn't the game, the franchise they remember anymore, and they start to feel like maybe what they used to know and love isn't for them now. They don't play it again. And you know what? That's okay, people move on, but I suppose it depends on how much of an impact the lack of realistic aesthetic and identity is actually hurting the game. I don't have the data for that, of course, but I feel like it should be a consideration, as I've seen many people discuss this. It isn't some niche topic, and there's a huge audience of FPS multiplayer gamers who want to play in realistic, authentic worlds where they can play a role and sink into a fantasy. COD is missing out on that now. It's something to think about, and perhaps a solution to this that would please both parties is to have a simple toggle switch in the options that says
we agree.
Only show me default and authentic skins. Next, oh boy, cheats. I cannot believe that after 5 years after all of the calls, the feedback sessions, the Reddit posts, the tweets, the blogs, the videos, the clips, the lawsuits, Warzone and Call of Duty still has a gigantic problem with cheaters. It's as worse as it's ever been, and the community does not trust that anything can be done to ameliorate the cheating situation. It's out of control. Legit players are getting shadow banned more often than ever now too. People don't trust each other and question every kill cam. The cheating situation is so bad that some people actually believe Activision develop cheats themselves and then sell them to cheat websites who sell them to players.
Insanity.
It's absolutely wild. I realized that this is not an easy job for the developers. It's an ongoing battle and it can never be won by either side, especially when there's money involved. But it's quite clear that Call of Duty is losing and it does not have control of this at all. And it's hard to know where to start discussing this too, because there's so many factors at play, but this really started to become a widespread problem when Modern Warfare 19 introduced crossplay with PC and console and Warzone released as free-to-play, exposing that huge console audience to things that they'd never seen before. Rage hacking, aimbots, wall hacks, flying cars, DDoS attacks. It showed all of this stuff to a massive group that hadn't seen it before and they started talking about it. And I'm going to keep this short because it's been discussed ad infinitum, but here's some things they could do that I feel would actually make a meaningful impact. Some of this stuff wouldn't be easy. It would be a difficult decision, but I think it would help. And bear in mind that I play on PC too, so I would suffer from some of this. Step 1, give console players the option for console-only crossplay. So PC players can only play with console players if the console player allows that in their matchmaking filters, or if they're in a party together. Yes, for legit PC players, this would have a big negative impact on matchmaking times, but sometimes a wolf has got to chew off its own leg to survive. This could be a good fix in the interim while they look at bolstering other forms of protection. Step 2, roll out a mandatory always-on secure boot anti-cheat for PC. Go down the same route as Valorant. Talk to Riot Games, get it done. Initially, people...
I agree with that. I think what happens is there's people that have come out and been vocal against that because of the trust issues regarded to it. I think Pirate Software has like a couple viral clips in regards to this where he says it's bad, they don't need to do it. and a lot of people value his opinion, so they've jumped on that topic and saying, yes, it's bad. For me, I just don't want cheaters in the game. I don't want any level of cheating in the game. And I agree with him on this. The crossplay, he didn't specify, but one thing that a lot of times the crossplay off feature does is it pretty much separates PlayStation only players, and Xbox doesn't have that ability. I know there's roundabout ways you can make it happen, but then you end up with issues where you can't matchmake. I think that ideally, if they were to go that route with the matchmaking, which it sounds like they're doing for ranked, you'd allow it where PlayStation and Xbox could still crossplay, but PC would basically be excluded. Yes, there's going to be the random Andy in the comment section saying, well, console has cheats too. Yes, but not at the level of PC. It is not even remotely the same.
Will complain en masse. If they want to play on PC, they've got to install it. No one trusts COD right now. This would be difficult, but in the long term, the benefits of having a clean game and a clean reputation would far outweigh the initial outrage and
100%.
backlash. Step 3, in 2024, Microsoft bought Activision for $68.7 billion. Call of Duty is now owned by Microsoft. What do Microsoft make? They make Windows. You play Call of Duty on PC with Windows. They're probably doing this already, but work more with the Windows team. Work with Microsoft. Come up with a better solution for fighting cheaters on PC, because what you got right now isn't enough and it's ineffective. And step 4, implement if it's not there already. I guess it was. And if it is, rely way more on real-time, in-game statistical analysis of players. From a data standpoint, obvious cheaters and rage hackers do things that human beings cannot. If that kind of obviously inhuman behavior is detected in a match, just ban it straight away. Moving on.
That's one that's always weird too, because when we had the API available, it was always like, well, clearly this person's cheating. Like common sense, they're cheating. But yet they don't end up getting banned after several matches. Obviously, that was prior to Ricochet. Obviously, once Ricochet came out, we didn't really have much access to the analytics. I don't remember the exact timing, but it seems like they kind of swapped around a similar time that we lost access to the API. I feel like that was a useful tool the community could look at and say, yep, that's clearly cheating. 9 out of 10 people agree, or even 10 out of 10. But yeah, it's like the system doesn't even have that basic functionality. Weird.
Skill-based matchmaking, engagement-based matchmaking, whatever you want to call it, however you define it, however they define it. If you're watching this video, you know roughly what it is. In this section, I'm not going to discuss if I think it's a good or bad thing overall. I'm just going to tell you how I feel when I play this game. This feeling started with Modern Warfare 2019. When I play quick play in Call of Duty now, be that multiplayer or Warzone, I feel like I'm being manipulated. I feel a severe lack of gameplay variety. I feel like I play with and against the same players over and over. I feel like my ping is higher on average. I feel like I wait longer for matches than ever before, and I feel like I can't play with my friends. In 2020,
what is funny is he said feel for all of those, but pretty much a lot of those things have been tested. Back in Cold War, and I think even prior, I can't remember now, but in Cold War, we did a group test with myself, Exclusive Ace, Drifter, Sour. We pulled a bunch of data together, and a lot of those feels actually translate to actual data points that like point anecdotally, I guess, even though the statistics would need to be a much larger sample size than 100 or 200 players or whatever the case is. And now Exclusive Ace has put out a few videos on it. I haven't really had a chance to watch them yet. People have told me to check those out. But realistically, there's these data that you can get from Activision. Their site had issues. I tried to get mine and it wouldn't work. I couldn't get my information, but apparently he's gone through it and it talks a little bit more about in depth with actual numbers, how the skill rating stuff works, to my knowledge. I still have to watch it, but it's worth watching if you're interested. Go check it out.
Before, Call of Duty released a couple of blogs and white papers explaining how their matchmaking system works. In total, 44 pages of information. 44 pages. There's graphs and data. It's available for free for everyone to see and read. I think it's a fascinating piece and I really appreciate the communication from them. However, on the first page, it states the following. As the community will attest, ping is king. Connection is the most critical and heavily weighted factor in the matchmaking process. I'm sorry to say, this does not line up with my experience of the game at all. It's like pointing at an orange and telling me over and over again that it's a banana. How can ping be king when there's a 44-page document explaining how the matchmaking works and all of these other factors are a big consideration? When I saw this for the first time, I found it quite funny, and in my head I'm doing this. So imagine a player clicks play to start matchmaking, and behind the scenes we see the matchmaking algorithm man trying to find a game for them. Okay, first thing, connection. Where are they based? North America, East Coast. Cool, cool, cool. So here's some nearby servers. Now look, 50,000 people currently searching for a game in North America. Brilliant. And then we need to think about how long they've been waiting for. Let's check. Okay, so only a few seconds so far. No worries, no worries. Okay, great. I found a super low ping server that they can play in here. 5 millisecond connection. Amazing. The game is just about to start. Whoa, wait. No. We can't put them in there because their kill death ratio is too low for that lobby. I just lost a load of good servers there. Hang on a second. What platform are they on? Xbox? Okay, so maybe we can put them with more Xbox players in this lobby. Wait, no, we can't. Average score per minute, slightly higher compared to the other players in there. So that would weigh the lobby too far in one team's favor and would be less likely to be a close match. It's going to be 90% chance instead of 95% chance. Unacceptable. How long have they waited now? Oh God, it's getting long. So what about this lobby? They don't have voice chat turned on. Can't put them in there. God, the selection of players is really getting a lot smaller now. What about the... No, not in there. So, oh, they're playing on controller. Good. How about this lobby with PlayStation players also using controller? Bit of crossplay. Good. Nah, come on, don't be silly. They just played on this map before. Can't put them in there. Sorry. I'm really not sure about this. I mean, they could go in this low ping lobby that I found, but nah. Playlist diversity and their KD is too high for that lobby, so there's no way. Oh, hang on. This one looks good so far. Check. I found a good one here. It's the perfect match. Everything lines up. Skill, platform, voice chat, input, maps, playlist diversity, 0.99 chance of a close game. The numbers make sense, but I've ruled out so many other servers now. This lobby's going to be 60 ping for that player. Screw it. You know what? Throw them in there. They've waited too long. Who cares if they have a worse experience because of the ping? Go complain on Reddit, loser. See you in the next match. That's Call of Duty matchmaking. That's how it feels to me.
Oh my God, that is so funny. That is so funny because it's so true. Connection. Oh my God. I'm thinking about that one for a bit. That's funny as hell.
If ping was king, a player would click play. It would find any group of players searching to fill a lobby in a server close to them, put them in a group together and start the match as quick as possible. That's actually what ping is king would be. And that's not how the current system is at all. So you should know, if you're playing COD today, based on the information in the document they provided, in any mode that you play, you have a hidden rating, profile, and analytics on you that are being used to put you in a lobby.
And that's the thing I was talking about with Exclusive Ace. He's been talking about that. I don't even know if it includes Warzone data, but they do have multiplayer data that he's talked about. If you're interested in learning more about that aspect, I would definitely check out that video.
That it deems acceptable. Skill and engagement are big factors. You're filling a hole. And no matter what level you're at, you can't see your own or other skill rating in the game. It will always try to match you with players of similar skill. If you think that's a good or bad thing, that's up to you. It limits the amount of people you play with, it has a negative impact on your connection experience and ping in the game, and it extends the time waited searching for a game. If they continue with this system in Warzone and multiplayer, it's only going to get more accurate over time, by the way. It would be great to let players in-game see their own rating and other players' rating for each lobby. I think that would go a long way. Related to this, thanks to some community members and notably the efforts of content creator Exclusive Ace, they discovered the only way to see some small reference for your behind the scenes skill rating is by submitting a data and information privacy request on the Activision website. It takes a few days to receive this, but it does show you your perceived skill value. There's not much context to it though, and no visibility of the players that you were playing with and against, but what it does reveal is a heavily reactive system that's constantly updating. I'd recommend watching Exclusive Ace's videos on this if you're interested to learn more. Wrapping this bit up, the discussion around matchmaking in COD games has become overwhelmingly toxic now. It's created more distrust in the community, and there are conspiracy theories such as skill-based damage and easier matchmaking if you buy bundles from the store. Players also figure out ways constantly to subvert these systems through various methods. I don't know what the answer is here, but for this section, I'll leave you with this. The notion of an old school, casual, and unfiltered multiplayer experience has gone. Every match, regardless of your skill, is essentially a ranked match with no rank progression and no context of how and why you performed the way you did. You should know that you're always playing ranked, but it's just not called that. I feel like Call of Duty has forgotten that it's a toy to be played with, and their matchmaking system is designed to manipulate you and keep you playing for longer. Next, bugs. Honestly, there's been so many bugs with Warzone.
He just showed a few bugs right now.
Documenting them all. Every game has them. It just seems that Warzone has way more than average. and they take longer to fix. There's been a notable pattern too that when there are problems with the store, they're often fixed sooner in a much quicker fashion. That might just be because a store problem is generally easier to fix than a gameplay problem though, but it's happened enough times now that it sends the wrong message and it creates a narrative within the community. Moving on, server performance. Yeah, it's not great, is it? Combined with the complex matchmaking system, you can get into some pretty rough servers with packet loss and high pings. Servers crash too, and they can be crashed by hackers now. And while there's no official data, third-party testers have surmised that the game runs at between 15 to 20 tick rate. I'm no game developer and I'm very ignorant to this, but my understanding of it is that the higher the tick rate, the more real up-to-date version each player has of the game. In layman's terms, it's how fast everything in a lobby updates. The faster the better. Some games like Valorant have a 128 tick rate, so the response is very fast and hit registration, taking damage, etc. more often than not feels accurate. Obviously, Warzone has a much higher player count than Valorant of 100 to 150 players, so there may be technical problems with increasing the tick rate. I assume it would also cost more money for Activision to run higher tick rate servers, but as I mentioned before, they are owned by Microsoft now, so perhaps they can sort out some kind of deal, you know? I don't even...
Well, one of the things to mention on that is I just saw a thing recently that before this acquisition happened, Activision already had a networking or server deal with another company. I think through Amazon. And what happens is they are locked into a contract. Basically, the contract has to run out, is my understanding of it. So what ends up happening is once that runs out, then they'll be able to go to the Xbox servers, are hosted by Microsoft servers. So I think that also creates an issue because obviously they're kind of stuck into a contract. They can't actually switch over to the servers that they can min-max and actually have a meaningful change. We don't know how long this is. I don't know if that's just like a rumor or what, but to my understanding, Activision already had a deal in place, so they have to wait for that deal to run out or buy that deal out, which I don't know if personally, just get all hands on deck to fix the game, right? But financially, they might not see that as a value proposition when they present that to board members or whatever the hell.
Even know if it would help with Warzone, but in my simple brain, it makes sense. It would be a nice olive branch for the community to spend a bit more time and money on server performance. Other large player count games in the past, like Battlefield 4, for example, with 64 players, did have high tick rate servers up to 120 Hz if you wanted. That felt super snappy, good to play on, and 60 Hz then became the standard going forward. So I feel like it should be possible for Warzone too. And higher tick rate servers should definitely be there already in multiplayer for smaller gamers like S&D hardpoint domination. I'm sure those upgrades would make a massive positive impact on rank play and of course competitive, the Pro League. I think it's important that we talk about trust as well. Call of Duty has been having a very hard time with this over the last 2 years or so, I would say, and it would appear...
Well, one of the problems with the trust issues, which I'm sure he'll probably include, is the fact that there's a lack of transparency at times. It's like when things are going good, they have no problem opening their mouth about how amazing the game is doing. Oh, most players ever, most this, highest this. Oh my God, we're so amazing. Things are going well. As soon as it goes, anything going bad, silence. And I think that's a big problem with transparency. It is also just as important to yell your like accomplishment as your failures. Like acknowledge them because when you do acknowledge your failures, then it's making awareness that you're holding yourself accountable to those things. And this works with real life things too. If you're saying, hey, I want to be able to do things differently, then you tell other people so that they can also help hold you accountable, and the community will be able to say, hey, by the way, you mentioned this a month ago that you're working on this. What's going on? Like there's some accountability to be had when you have transparency, but they're not doing that. So I think that's a huge problem.
Here on the surface, that trust within the fan base and vocal community is at an all-time low. On almost every social media post or YouTube video, there is a slew of negative comments and sentiment. Sometimes even community notes. It mainly revolves around fixing the game, the cheating situation, and focusing on selling bundles and event passes instead of addressing problems with the game. The recent Squid Game event is an example of that. It gives the impression that their priorities are not in the right place. I also mentioned the thing about store errors too in the bug section that are promptly fixed. Other bad examples that soured trust are like during Warzone 2 when DMZ was being updated still. They sold store bundles that gave you pretty big gameplay advantages like always spawning in at the start of a round with a UAV. It all makes people wonder what else could be going on behind the scenes. Generally, speaking about microtransactions too, Call of Duty feels like it crams so much of that down your throat nowadays that you get sick of the taste. The battle passes, the store, black sell, events, skins, collabs, paid for passes in your face as soon as you boot up the game. It's way too focused on the business and engagement side of things, and I think it's really starting to have a negative impact on the gameplay and player base now. Trust is important.
This is also another thing that happens in a lot of other games. Destiny is really big in this aspect as well. If you load up Destiny 2 right now, you're going to just be inundated with notifications. Buy this dungeon, buy this pass, buy this former season, buy this campaign. And it's just like, bro, I don't need 72 pop-ups. COD very much feels like that message of the day. And then you got to tab through the event for the other event, which is for a bundle. And then there's the store. And it's like, bro, could you chill out? And then like he was talking about, it is bad. It's bad. Especially for somebody who's grown up with gaming without the existence of microtransactions. It is so sad.
And the only way out of this is to start actually delivering good updates and fixes. Shift the focus to the gameplay. More transparent communication would be nice too, but ultimately, I feel like they should stop saying they're going to do things and instead just start doing the things and let the improvements do the talking. Wrapping things up, because I don't want this video to go on too long, it probably already is, but I feel like many of these issues that I have could be rectified if they were to separate Warzone from the main Call of Duty titles so they weren't shackled and bound by that anymore. Make it a separate game with its own dedicated dev team, engine, weapon values, cycles, vision, etc. They need a fresh start and to go back to the drawing board, really diving into what made 2020 Warzone so good in the first place. It has started to become tiresome every year when there's a new COD game to learn, unlock and grind all these new weapons for Warzone, and every time they do a new integration, it shakes up the gameplay too much in my opinion. The art style changes, the vibe changes, the gameplay changes, turning players away from what they knew and throwing too many curveballs at them. PUBG, as I mentioned at the start of the video, it's the only battle royale game right now that I still play somewhat regularly. As of making this video on a Sunday in January, PUBG has 507,000 players on PC Steam right now, with a 24-hour peak of 758,000. That's impressive. In the 7+ years that the game has been out, it hasn't massively deviated from its original vision at launch either. It is still a battle royale. They added more big maps over time. They didn't try and shake up the game mechanics every year or make drastic sweeping changes. The movement is exactly the same as day one, apart from some good quality of life changes which were added.
I will argue in agreeing with him on this. I think the biggest issue was that when Warzone 2 came out, I think they wanted that to be cool. Warzone's a standalone going forward, but the backlash was so hard. Like, imagine them just keeping Warzone 2 the way it was. No one, like, I'm not gonna say nobody, but like the vast majority would have been against that. And I think we ended up with a better product once we got to MW3. And I think if it just stayed MW3, I think a lot of people would have been fine because it was a good version of the Battle Royale, and they just needed to continue tweaking things and maybe reverting some things to get us closer to Warzone 1 in that feel that he's talking about. And they ended up jumping again what we have now with Black Ops 6. And I think part of that had to do with MW3 being like a Band-Aid. The changes they made were like a Band-Aid. We're like, okay, we're going to overhaul this, but we need a filler because we weren't really planning on this because Warzone 2 was so awful. We did not expect us to need to make these changes. And I think they've learned from that, hopefully, and maybe that's just optimism, even though I'm not too optimistic about the game until we actually get some of these fixes. I think they really wanted to do what he's talking about back in Warzone 2, but the problem is it came out so flat. DMZ essentially flopped, even though we have rumors of that coming back in 2026. There were a lot of issues with DMZ where it started out with the good form of DMZ, and then they overhauled it, and then they continue to ruin it. So maybe I mean I don't trust the direction because of mistakes like that, but it's really weird scenario. I think what we have now though, when we get this next integration, it won't be an overhaul or change. I think they've already understood that, and it gives the main studio, which is Raven, the opportunity to work on and fix the game without having to have all these changes with the integration. So we'll see.
Just vaulting and hoisting. I enjoy kicking back on the game, playing with friends from time to time. And I don't engage with the battle pass or cosmetics either. I don't care about the progression. I just play the game and enjoy it for what it is, a game. Warzone needs to break away, in my opinion. It needs to draw a clean line in the sand where they can build from scratch again and define what it is and what it wants to be. As a player, I'm looking for that level of consistency. A clean break would also be a great opportunity for the COD team to tell players that from this point in time, any purchases they make are staying with them in Warzone, so they feel that they can invest and commit to the game in the long term. In Fortnite, for example, that isn't even a question. You know that whatever's on your account stays on your account and it will be accessible to you. On Steam, when Black Ops 6 released, the daily concurrent player count of the COD launcher was 306,000. Remember, that encompasses multiple COD games too. As of today, that number is currently sitting at 50,000 concurrent players. Remember, these games are available on Game Pass, Battle.net and consoles too, so the actual overall player number is much higher than this, but what the Steam charts show us is a trend. If COD is losing this many daily players on Steam, it's probably losing a proportionate amount on the other platforms too. This time it definitely feels a bit different to me. When Warzone released, it was a nice white t-shirt. You wore it every day, you washed it. It came back looking like new, smelling great. Each time there was a new season, a big map update to Verdansk, a new point of interest, you felt the excitement. The Halloween event was incredible. Then you got killed by a cheater for the 10th time. That left a stain. And then the server lagged out again. That left a stain. And then you got squad wiped in the final circle by someone glitching under the map. New stain. And then you were told that the cosmetics you paid for didn't carry across to the next version of the game. Big stain. You couldn't use your kill streak. Stain. You try and wash it and you can't get those stains out, but you keep playing, trying it again. And then you get killed by someone who made no footstep sounds running on the floorboards right next to you. New stain. Then a flying hacker car wipes you out. Stain. They take your favorite game mode away. New stain. Your game crashes with a dev error. Stain. You take the t-shirt off, you throw it in the washer, one more spin, comes out, no difference. It doesn't change. There's too many stains on it, they've left too many marks. And you know what? You're not going to wear that t-shirt anymore. Warzone needs a new t-shirt. This game was a massive deal for Call of Duty. Free to play, exciting and fresh. I spent hours having fun on the game with friends, but I don't play it much at all anymore. I find that kind of sad considering how good it used to be.
So one of the things that's a little bit counterintuitive with what he's suggesting too is I completely agree with the shirt like example that he gave. I think that's perfect. But what happens is they're saying Warzone needs to split off and make a new game, but in saying that essentially would do and repeat the pattern that we've already had for the past 6 years. Every year we got an integration that essentially changed the way the game flowed. So he's recommending for that, while at the same time saying that like, oh, well, you know, we don't want those things, but it's like those two things can't exist. You can't make a new version broken off while also not making a new version break. Like, it's kind of a weird thing there. I think that's a little bit of contradictory. I agree. That would have been a perfect world if Warzone 2, when that launched, that could have been its own split off, but it was so bad that they needed to overhaul it. Unfortunately, they can't really go back to Warzone 1, exact 1-to-1, make the game. I don't know. I don't think that would function properly. So it's like damned if you do, damned if you don't. I think they'll continue to make the version of the game better, but I'm not sure.
And I hope that we can come back to that in the future. Yes, I know Warzone 2020, it wasn't perfect. There were some big issues with balance, dead silence, stopping power, etc. But goddamn, it was fun as hell. Simple, easy to understand, easy to pick up, and an amazing sandbox to play in. Perhaps we'll never get back to that, and perhaps that's okay, but I think that the foundation that they had there should have been nurtured and improved upon instead of being broken down time and time again. Luckily, we're sport for choice and there are plenty of other amazing games to choose from right now. I wish the developers luck going forward, and I'll be keeping a close eye on updates. Thanks for watching. Do let me know your thoughts below, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Really good video. I'll go and link it in the description. Obviously, Jack Frags has been around for a long time. He covered plenty of games besides COD. He's up over 1 million views on this video. A lot of people recommended me to check this video out. Normally, I don't react to a video on the first day, just because you got to kind of let videos breathe, even though he's a much larger channel than my size. Normally, I wait at least 3 to 4 days to kind of react to a video, especially if people are asking. So pretty solid video. Obviously, we agree and disagree on a lot of different points, but overall, I think the message is there. We want the game to be better. We want it to function well. And whatever that's going to take, I think people do disagree on. And just the same way I disagree on points with him, I'm sure the devs in the studio disagree on multiple points about what made the game important or not, or function or successful or not successful. The same way that in the comments section, people will be arguing and bickering and debating. That's all fine, but realistically, no, I don't think anyone's looking at the game and they just want it to fail. In a perfect world, COD would be free to play across the board. We'd have a successful multiplayer, successful zombies, and successful Warzone, and they can all thrive in their own way, and people be able to play these games and not it be 1 terabyte of storage space. We'd be able to have map swapping and all these other things, but realistically, we'll see what we end up getting. Season 2 is not going to save Warzone. That's just going to be a patch and mini patches that are to come that will get the game on the right track. And I think a lot of it's going to be towards getting it towards kind of what he's talking about and kind of what I've been talking about for multiple months now, or even over the past year, some of the flaws with the game that could get it back to where it was. And we'll see how it goes. Appreciate all the support. Thank you for watching. As always, have a great day.